Hello, everybody. I'm Selvi, and welcome back to GMAT Club. Now, you guys have put in the work, you hit submit, and now the school has said maybe. It's easy to feel disheartened, but a waitlist spot actually means the school likes you. They just need a little bit more of convincing. Joining me today to turn that maybe into a yes is the brilliant Mansi Divan. We are going to break down exactly why this happens and how to manage the emotional roller coaster. Most importantly, we have 5 types of interventions and 5 types of updates you can make to maximize your conversion. Make sure to watch until the end to find out what those 5 things are. Mansi, let's jump right in.
Thank you very much for having me, Selvi. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be discussing waitlists with y'all.
Exactly. Same goes here. And whoever is watching, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel because Mansi and I are going to have more of these videos coming up soon in the future. But Mansi, as I said, let's just jump right in. The big question, why do waitlists happen?
There are several reasons for waitlists to happen, Selvi. The first and the most important one is that the number of candidates applying is always greater than number of seats, and there are mirror candidacies. There are many people having similar background, academic, professional, co-curricular background applying at the same time as you. Uh, well, sometimes the reason is logistical. Schools don't have adequate resources to deal with your candidacy just yet, and they are asking for more time, and the waitlist is an easy solution. A lot of why waitlist happens also depends on whether you're waitlisted without an interview or with an interview. If you're waitlisted without an interview, there's not much you can do about it at that very point. um, in all likelihood, you will get an interview call that's mandatory before you get an admission. And then the course of the admission cycle runs. This video is for folks who've been waitlisted mostly after the interview and what they can do.
Makes sense. And for anyone who has any questions, guys, feel free to add them in the comment section down below. We will do our best to answer them one by one after the session ends. Okay, so now that we understood why waitlists happen, of course, let's also talk about how a person would feel in the situation, and what's the best way to handle it.
Well, it's very frustrating, of course. You've got the test score, you've done the work on the application, you've got the requisite work experience, you feel you have done a compelling job with choosing your recommenders, and then you get waitlisted. And you think you've done everything right. And getting waitlisted is, of course, very frustrating and anxiety inducing. But you need to step back, take stock of the situation, identify what areas you can improve on, take interventions on were there any weak areas that you can work on, and work towards them. And we can probably convert it. A healthy number of candidates convert waitlists because churn happens almost across cycles all the time. And the folks who stay diligent work on sharing updates with schools and working on areas that they could have improved will maximize their chances of getting in.
I see. I also wanted to know, how are waitlists dealt with or evaluated exactly?
Look, there isn't really a rankings of sort how waitlists are evaluated. Schools don't really have a fixed target cycle by cycle across schools, across cycles. Different numbers of candidates will get waitlisted. A lot of it also depends on how schools want to shape their class, and spots will open up. They're just trying to manage their yield and keep the candidates they are interested in hanging on the line. There unfortunately isn't a ranking.
Interesting.
There are,
Okay.
like I mentioned, there are candidates with similar backgrounds applying. And sometimes the waitlist is just about being left behind because someone who has a similar candidacy got in previously.
Oh, so
That's a
wait, can you
high.
give an example?
Um, Two people applying from a leading MBB company from the same practice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just a small point increase in the score. Um, Maybe one has a promotion over the other, greater number of projects or international experience, and he got an admit, and the school's unsure of the second one now, and is maybe going to wait for the first candidate to accept or reject his or her spot to take in the other one. Well, sometimes they'll take in multiple candidates from the same company, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Oh, interesting. And how many times have you come across this kind of scenario?
More number of times than I can count, unfortunately. Sometimes it can be random. Candidates applying from the same company, two people get in, one gets waitlisted after interview and automatically gets an admit in 2 or 3 weeks. What you need to do about the waitlist actually also depends on how high a priority that school is for you.
Yes.
Uh, if it's a fallback option and you've gotten into a better ranked college, then you can maybe just drop off the wait list or do nothing. It's always nice and ethical to inform the school about wanting to drop off the wait list because you got into another program that was higher priority for you. um, but if you're waitlisted and you really, really want to get to the B school, then you need to take stock of what you've done in your application, see what are the areas you can improve upon, and work towards those.
Correct. Correct. And of course, we are going to talk about how a student should strengthen their candidacy, but sometimes students don't take any action and they still get in. So talk about that scenario, please, Mansi.
That's fun. It's funny you mentioned that. You'll randomly interview and get waitlisted, and a month or 2 months later, on the next round, you'll automatically get admitted. This has happened because the spots opened up, or the schools had the time to look through your application carefully and then decide they like you,
Correct.
and they'll offer you an admission, and then you have to decide what you want to do. Um, Here's what happens. You might ask me, should you send updates? Well, sometimes people who don't send updates get an interview call or just get admitted after an interview without doing anything. That's that's great and it happens, but if you've been waitlisted at a school where you really, really want to go,
Yeah.
then it's important to send frequent updates to B schools or take actionable steps to improve your candidacy, because a lot of waitlisted candidates are not accepted. There's lots and lots of waitlisted candidates, and if you don't know how many more like you are waitlisted, and if the schools are going to open up spots for just one or two more and there are 10 of you, then the guys who've made concrete interventions and have frequently shared updates are most likely to get in. So it's worth the effort to continue engaging with the B schools.
Makes sense. And I guess this is coming to the next point, which is, like obviously, what should a student do to strengthen their candidacy? You mentioned that, like sharing updates. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, updates is just one aspect of it. Once you get waitlisted, there are a couple of other things you can do as well. And one of those is maybe like improving your test score. If your score is lesser than the average of the B school, that's probably the reason why you've been waitlisted. And this is a low hanging fruit. If in the next few weeks you can up your score, send them an update, it's going to make all the difference. It's happened all the time across cycles. um, you could get in touch with students, especially folks from your academic professional circles who are currently students or alums of the B schools where you've been waitlisted, and
Yeah.
ask them to send you an additional endorsement. That always helps. Different schools have different additional recommendations slash endorsement rules, but most schools will welcome it. An additional recommendation, this should be used with discretion. Uh, an additional recommendation should almost always add a different aspect, should highlight a different facet of your candidacy that the earlier two recommendations could not. So if you think that an additional recommendation can say something different, meaningful, and reveal different strengths, go for it. Of course, visiting the school helps and establishes your core interest as well. And then the fifth thing, which we're going to talk about in a dedicated manner, is the waitlist updates.
Which is this, I guess.
How frequently to send the waitlist updates, how many, what kind of waitlist updates. There are different types of waitlist updates you can share. Ideally, one waitlist every 4 to 6 weeks, but every waitlist should be meaningful, succinct, power packed, and chocker full of meaningful substance. I've highlighted 5 things over here. It doesn't apply to everybody, but this is the ambit within which candidates can choose from. Sometimes people have promotions, they change companies, they get international exposure, they take on additional projects. There have been results on projects that they were working on at the time they applied. So these are very, very pertinent work changes. Then accomplishments, awards, call outs, promotions also, we just discussed it. There's a little bit of an overlap. Things that you could not discuss in your application or that transpired after you applied. You could also take on additional coursework. This is very relevant to candidates who come from non-mainstream backgrounds, such as maybe architecture or medicine or non-quantitative liberal arts backgrounds. Or if you want to take on additional business school readiness courses, do economics, stats, analytics, whatever, to show how you have been preparing for BSchools. Take those courseworks, send updates. Some folks have not taken the quantitative courses that they may have needed to take at the time when they were preparing for the applications, which is what we discussed in the 6-month application roadmap. Well, if you've been waitlisted, now's the time to work on those aspects. Understanding the BSchool really well, and establishing fitment, why you fit in the community, why the academic experience is meaningful to you, how you see yourself engaging with the school, and how you see yourself benefiting academically and professionally from the program. That almost always needs to be a part of every waitlist update. And also how you see yourself adding value to the learning of your community, the ecosystem, how your distinct academic and professional background will help you contribute meaningfully to the program. So you can't send all of these updates together all the time. You should pick and choose. Engagement with the community is a definite must. Additional coursework is highly solicited. Professional accomplishments and work changes, always the schools need to be informed for. But whatever you don't have, steer clear of those sections.
Yeah.
Express interest in the school, discuss engagement with the school, the contributions to the community, and whatever else applies. A waitlist update can range anywhere from 300 to 500 words, but anything beyond that, every word needs to count. So,
I see.
because you have to send multiple updates, be prepared to wait until the very fag end and send at least 2 to 3 updates, if not more. So if you create a universe of all the materials that you're going to share with the BSchools, you can share your updates in a staggered manner.
I see. Does being waitlisted in different rounds change anything?
There are some schools that waitlist a lot of candidates in some rounds. I don't want to name schools here, but there are some schools that are known notoriously for taking a large part of their international cohorts in an earlier round, or waitlisting candidates in round one and then stacking them against the entire applicant pool in the second round. This is just very, very school specific.
Correct.
And there isn't really a general opinion to be made here. Uh, and candidates, once they are applying, they should be very well versed with the trends, and that you can find out through engagement with the students prior to applying.
Hmm.
More
I mean,
informed.
all in all, the school should feel like this student really wants, to be part of our, batch, right? Isn't that like the main goal? And you have to do whatever you have to do to make them feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to court the schools and uh, tell them that you really, really want to come.
That makes sense. Well, alrighty. Well, I'm sure, and I hope that this session really helps the waitlisted students just understand a little bit better on how to better their application and hopefully turn that maybe into a yes. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to add them in the comments. Even though this is a live session, once it ends, we will still look at the comments and we'll do our best to answer them one by one. But thank you, Mansi. This was great. Any last words for our YouTube audience?
I just wanted to say, guys, hang in there. All is not lost. There's still hope, and you can make it. This is better than a reject, and your chances of getting in are still very present.
That is true. That is true. Well,
Thank you
alrighty.
very
Have
much.
a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Mansi. Take care. Bye
Thank you
bye.
for having me, Selby. Have a good evening.